Laura Babcock, commentator, is joining me now. She's the president of Power Group Communications. She often weighs in on political stories. Your reaction, Laura, when you heard this news about 2 hours ago?
I was shocked. And while some people are out there saying that, oh, maybe people thought this might be happening in Ottawa, I think for the rest of the country, we are all taken aback. Because certainly the Trudeau family and Sophie and Justin have been very public. They've posted, lovely photos of them and their family on Halloween, for instance. She's always been front and center in his campaigns. And I think watching the two of them also go through COVID, if you recall, a lot of Canadians feel very close to this family. And just the fact that we're seeing those other images of his parents, whenever Canadians are reminded of Pierre Trudeau and all of that, it really is an important part of Canadians' cultural fabric, the Trudeau family. They are, the sort of like the Kennedys of Canada in terms of brand. And so I think Canadians are all hearing this. There's some shock. What I find interesting from a public relations or an optics lens is it really is about how people respond to it. Because to be divorced in Canada, most, the average is 15 years of marriage. And so they've been together longer than the average. And I don't think there's a lot of Canadians who are going to jump to criticize. This is a personal family matter. They might be public figures, but they deserve respect and privacy for their relationship and their family. And it sounds as though with their statement, they want to model good collaborative parenting post-separation. So I think from the point of view of Canadians feeling negative towards their family, I don't think we're going to see that. It might actually evoke some sympathy for Trudeau at this time. And it's important how others respond to it. If people take license and make personal attacks, it could hurt them politically. If opponents to Trudeau decide that this is a time for cheap shots or for snarky kind of public conversations, I think it will backfire. So what Canadians really need to do now is to give the family some privacy and to see, how Trudeau rebounds from this midsummer bad news announcement and potentially approaches campaigning in the fall.
Yeah, Laura, public relations are, one of your specialties, and also the optics of different situations. You mentioned this, the idea that to a certain extent, because many people can relate to breakups and divorces, separations from their spouses, trying to, continue to raise children amid all of that, plus the stress of a job. We can only imagine, when you consider it's the Prime Minister, what kind of stress we're talking about there. But that it does serve perhaps to make Justin Trudeau more relatable for those who may have seen him as a distant figure, or perhaps even humanize the top politician in our country. This idea of him now becoming a single father of 3 children.
Exactly, Todd, because one of the narratives that's been picking up steam, especially in the last few years, is that he's out of touch with the average Canadian, out of touch with the financial woes many are going through with the affordable housing crisis, the 18% food inflation, and the fact that he was born into wealth and seemed to have this perfect family and seems very fit, and everything seems to be, almost Hollywood-esque with Trudeau and Sophie and their family. And so while we don't want to see any family go through this, it might actually help Canadians to go, okay, wait a second. This is a human, this is a person who feels, this is something that he's going through. It might, in fact, engender sympathy or just that sense of relatability when he's being cast as being completely out of touch. And we're seeing in the polling numbers that Canadians are moving away from him. And so is this going to be a moment where he comes back maybe refreshed now that the family has made this difficult choice and shared it, and they have a plan going forward? They're going to vacation together. Does that have implications for how he gets back to things in the fall? There's lots of speculation. We won't have to wait till 2015 to see the election. It might come next year. It could even come sooner, given how Poilievre is catching up to Trudeau in the polls, and the Conservative Party has got the Liberal Party on the run. So this might actually bring back a refreshed, more relatable Trudeau to the Canadian political scene.
And Laura, just before we go, I just want to ask you about, when Justin Trudeau first ran for Prime Minister back in 2015, we talked about a lot of the coverage of he and Sophie Gregoire Trudeau as they were seen as this sort of Camelot type, Kennedy-esque version for Canada, as they were young and they were attractive and they were, had young family and They were on the cusp of bringing in a new legacy. There was, of course, Pierre Trudeau and that whole history within the Trudeau family name as well. Things have obviously changed quite dramatically, but the role that she played in helping him to sort of be able to resonate with Canadians and to become Prime Minister. I remember, covering those elections. I mean, she was very prominent.
Yes, we remember her singing, and we remember all the conversations around her wardrobe and how she positioned Canadian designers. And she was relatable, the family was relatable, and behind the scenes, apparently, she had a lot of influence. So will that impact him in terms of his decision making and how he goes forward? But whenever Canadians are reminded, and we've seen this with Trudeau in these elections, whenever they're reminded about maybe not the policies of his dad, but this kind of Camelot imagery around the Trudeau family, I think it makes a lot of people feel a sense of connection to him, maybe a connection that's been falling apart the last few years. So this probably won't hurt him politically, depending on, this is very early. Hopefully there's no more revelations or anything that will come about what this family is going through, and we can get back to raw politics in this country. But, if things just keep going as they are with this collaborative joint statement and then vacationing with their kids, and then we get back to the needs of Canadians, we might, in fact, see this give Trudeau a little bit of a bounce in the sense that, people want to connect with him in a different way now. And we've all been through a pandemic. I think some people might be more angry, Todd, and more vicious towards the Prime Minister, but I think a lot of Canadians don't want to, pile on somebody during a difficult time now. We just want to see him succeed as Prime Minister for the country, and whatever happens in the election, that'll be up to Canadians.
Yeah, well said, and I think people certainly understand that this is a difficult time for Justin Trudeau and his wife, and certainly for their children as well, and our thoughts are with them, whatever else happens politically down the road. Laura Babcock joining us, a commentator. It's always good to see you, Laura, and much appreciate your insights today.
You too. Take care.